Hello everyone, I am the storyteller, and tonight I am here just to help you relax, to drift off to sleep by the sound of the waves, like the whispers of old souls. I know you have come to this video not just to hear the story, but also to find a deep, peaceful sleep. But before we begin, please gently like the video and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to tell you strange stories under the dim moonlight. Where are you from? And what time is it where you live? Just relax. Let your body relax. Put all your worries down by your pillow. Let me take you into a world of mysteries where the wind and the waves mingle, and unsolved mysteries are waiting to be told. Are you ready? Over my dead body, I sit in the corner of the embalming room, watching as the mustached man drains the blood from my corpse. The corpse lies on a metal table, covered in a white tarp, and there is a faint choker of purple bruising and checkered abrasions around my neck. The blood in the tubes is purple-colored, with streaks of black. My irises are cloudy white films. My pupils are fading black, lifeless dots. As the mortician hooks me up to the embalming machine with its pump and wires, and the cold fluid enters the veins of my body, I feel nothing. I kind of shiver anyway, out of habit. This is skeevy as hell. Funny thing, I spent my whole life being afraid of death. Looks like I ripped that Band-Aid off. So, what am I doing here, in this musty, dimly lit room? What the hell happened? Obviously, there's some kind of life after death. Mystery solved. But sitting here now, watching my dead body, I've got questions. Lots of questions. Next in line, after those lovely aforementioned quagmires, is why in the hell is this dude singing to my corpse? Like, can you get any creepier? The mortician is singing, knocking on heaven's door as he embalms me. Am I in hell? Wow. Pitchy much. Not only that, but his voice is hoarse and raspy, like he is breathing through a lifetime of Marlboro Reds. I can actually see the emphysema in his lungs, seeing disease. I guess that's one of those lovely abilities one acquires after traveling through the valley of the shadow, and that's me. Amelia. And this is what my life has amounted to. A pale, bloated slab of festering lunch meat. Pathetic. I'm vaguely angry. I don't feel outraged and cheated or anything like that. Not looking to get back into that saggy meat sack. I'm ready to move on. It's more of a boiling bloodlust, an impulse to do harm, to set things right. Unfinished business. I want restitution. But for what? And against whom? There's no way I took the coward's way out. So how did I die? I try to remember. But the last thing I can recall is drinking IPAs and taking Jam-O shots with Eddie at McGillen's old ale house on Drury Street, discussing the scoop I'd been working on. I walk into the casket showroom, which is directly across from the embalming room, and flip on the lights. Turns out, this is another one of my special abilities. The room has a gaudy chandelier, various shades of white on the walls and trim, and cheap green inch-thin carpeting. By the wall is a dingy, moth-eaten couch and stacked plastic chairs. Things are set up for the wake that evening. There are several stands full of freshly delivered flowers, with notes attached, giving their condolences. A poster board with flattering photographs, many of which feature me and my sister, Sarah. A table with a guest book, and some assorted personal items. A dictaphone, a few articles I had framed, showcasing my work, a trophy from high school, blah, 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 blah. I imagine the setting of my death, which I'm guessing was pegged as a suicide by the total lack of mention in the obituary or anywhere else. An inky black shadow appears in front of me, which I somehow recognize as a portal, and it is filled with static, like on an old-time 1980s black and white television set, whose antennas are not set up right. I place my right hand through. It is like jumping into ice-cold water. I am pulled in, and everything goes black. Seconds later, I find myself in a different time and place, in the basement/laundry room of my walk-up Kensington apartment on J Street. Now this is my kind of party. No, not really, Pervo. I'm being facetious. This is a Jomo situation. Besides, this entire room screams setup. Way too fleeky. The crime scene looks like the set of a bizarre porno. Chains, sex toys, a whip, an empty tequila bottle, and a bejeweled, cone-shaped polka dot party hat with glitter. These items are spiraled around my naked body, which is splayed out in an unnatural pose. There is a gratuitous can of whipped cream on an end table, brought to you by the set design team for Leaving Las Vegas. There are diamond-shaped imprints crisscrossing my throat. Kinky. These roughly match the links of a utility chain and master lock dangling from a pipe on the ceiling. There's the homicide detective on his cell phone by the staircase. What is he doing? Taking a coffee break? How about bagging some evidence, dude? I guess that's too much to ask. No suicide note. A flared red mini dress with sequins, fucking sequins, is hanging from an actual hanger on the back of a chair in the corner. What am I? Going to a ballet recital? And that isn't even my size. Who hangs themselves naked, by the way? Asking for a friend. What grown-ass woman wants a bunch of strangers staring at her hoo-ha and critiquing her post-mortem body. And if I'm guessing, someone would have had to have sedated me to get my clothes off without simultaneously losing their groping hands in the process. Good to see forensics is on top of things, seeing as it didn't appear that I had even been given an autopsy, let alone a post-mortem tox screen. Wouldn't want to burden toxicology with ruling out the ruthless murder of a local investigative reporter. Jesus. And here we have Exhibit A through Exhibit motherfucking Z. Forensics hasn't bothered taking any DNA off of my fingers, which are lacerated near the fingernails and probably have some kind of identifying biological evidence. But why bother with that? Taxpayer dollars and all. I certainly wasn't grasping at the chain if I did this to myself. So, query me this. Why do I have lacerations and biological matter under my fingernails? Because I was having such a good time before accidentally shuffling off the mortal coil. These brown brick buildings are so old, the entire basement is probably an asbestos dead zone I wouldn't be caught dead in. Ha! Guess I fucked that one up. I walk to the corner of the room, where I can feel an inky black void of icy cold drawing me in. Another portal begins to shake into existence, static and all. Seconds later, I am back in McGillen's old ale house on Drury Street. The place is filled with Phillies fans, dressed in jerseys and sports tees and sweatpants, swilling beer from octagonal plastic mugs and playing beer pong in the corner by the dartboard. The place smells like a fraternity basement. It's Getting Hot in Hera by Nelly is blaring a bit too loudly as most of the bargoers have their eyes fastened to the flat screens. Sitting at a table under the neon lighting near the bar is Alex. He's a friend, and he works for Congressman David Lebovitz. He's all suited up and out of place, with that annoying American flag pin on his lapel. He's our slightly douchier Barney Stinson. I'd say we love him for it, but he's suspect numero uno at the moment. Julia Denham is sitting across from him, a chirpy Asian woman who is a PR agent for various politicos around town. She is one of those annoying people who tries valiantly to tell everyone what they want to hear and gives the most annoying try hard vibes you've ever experienced. I overhear the two of them discussing Alex's promotion to campaign manager. Interesting. He seems a bit young for that position. And I didn't know he was a social climber. Judging by his drinking habits, I wouldn't have guessed he had so much closet ambition. I'm so happy for you, Alex. You've always been my favorite. So dashing and talented. Well done, sir. And well done is better than well said, Julia says. Here, here, Alex said, raising his mug in a token cheers. The important thing is to focus on David's military background, Julia says. Agreed. The public eats that stuff up, Alex says. Lots of pushback from the union lobbyists. We really need to lock in union support, too, Julia says. You know, there have been rumors about campaign finance issues, hence Jerry being canned, Alex says. We need to silence those rumors, Julia says. I've been working on it, Alex says. This son of a bitch. Did he do it himself? All of my anger boils over and lumps up in my throat, and I look directly into that bitch's face as I scream out, "You bastard!" at the top of my lungs. "You bastard," Julia says. "Excuse me?" Alex says. Holy shit. I've got ventriloquism abilities. I can speak through the living. Okay, focus. Amelia, you can do this. That bastard. I meant, that bastard, I say, through Julia. Interestingly, she doesn't seem to realize I'm speaking through her. You mean Amelia? Alex asks. Yes, that pesky Giorno. We need to make sure she doesn't put the congressman under the microscope or attract unnecessary media attention, I say, through Julia. I wouldn't worry about her. I hear she's a freak and has been on a drug bender lately. I'm sure she can be easily discredited. If she ever even gets around to writing that hit piece, Alex says. Are you fucking serious? I say, through Julia. What? Alex says. I mean, wouldn't want to see her have an unfortunate accident, I say, through Julia. No, wouldn't want that, Alex says with a chuckle. This son of a bitch. At least I know who I'm haunting now, and I am going to haunt this bastard into extinction. You're in for a dead reckoning, Palo. You think you are getting off scot-free on this one? Over my dead body. I distinctly remember, after about a half-dozen Jum-O shots, spilling the beans to Eddie about the scoop I had on the congressman. And Alex had been there, drinking with us that night. I'd laid it all out, given him the goods on a silver platter. How I had a source that Congressman Lebovitz had been funneling campaign funds provided by developer Gerald Bundler, a big-time party faithful, over to several local city councilmen to buy their votes on a zoning and buildings approval. Bundler needed the votes to secure zoning approvals and tax abatements for a gaudy luxury residential tower, unoriginally called the Summit, that does Zippo for Kensington, but which would make Bundler a pretty penny. The two of them slam their mugs together and cheer their damnable conspiracies, and I see an inky black static portal forming over by the dartboard. I walk through two college-age kids playing beer pong. I walk the length of the table. I swat the ball away as I go, and it goes bouncing under a table in the middle of the bar. I knock over a few solo cups, too, for shits and giggles. I step through the portal. Sarah and Eddie are drinking Dunkin' Donuts coffee at the shop by my apartment, seated at cringy tables in the dingy, beat-up walk-in area, which has taken a back seat to the drive-thru, as people have been growing increasingly antisocial. Sarah is my 2-year younger sister. And Eddie, well, you know Eddie, my fellow reporter, best friend. And if I'd lived long enough, there was some underlying chemistry that had us set on a course to eventually fuck. But I guess it is up to Sarah to light that torch if she ever has the inclination. My dance card is a bit full now. What with solving my own murder, time and space portals, learning new supernatural abilities, and figuring out how to pass on to the great beyond. And I'm presently sequestered in a different realm where I can't actually directly interact with the living. So that ship has sailed. She was happy, Sarah. Really happy. I just, Eddie says, in my mental monologue, I think, really wanted to jump her bones. But that's the thing. I have a dirty mind. See her taking her life? Sarah interrupts. Yeah. No. I am not buying it. But I can't help feeling guilty. Maybe there was something I missed. Maybe she was in some kind of trouble, and I didn't see the signs, Eddie says. Maybe if I had just sacked up and made a move that night, she never would have been home alone to be drugged and framed for suicide. I'm sorry. I'll stop. My sister was stubborn to a fault. If she was going to fall on her sword, which she never would have done, you can be damned sure she'd take someone down with her. Someone evil. Someone who deserved it. She never wasted a chance to make a statement, Sarah says. Damn right, sissy. Do you know anyone who would want to do her harm? I say, through Sarah. I can't think of anyone, Eddie says. Was there like a story she was working on? Anyone that might have had cause to shut her up? I ask, through Sarah. Well, Congressman Lebovitz. She was doing a hit piece, Eddie says. And anyone know about the piece who might have, maybe, wanted to stop it? I ask, through Sarah. Only Alex, Eddie says, continuing. Holy shit. Alex was there that night, and he just got promoted to campaign manager. Ah, Eddie, you aren't just a pretty face. Good boy. Now off to make a statement. I arrive in hell. And by that, I mean the Kensington neighborhood of North Philly, above Fishtown. They call it the Badlands. Upstanding citizens are locked indoors, afraid to come outside into the drugs and crime that are ubiquitous. It stands to reason why some developer wants to plow all this away and implant a bunch of yuppies to gentrify the area. But it doesn't mean it's any substitute for cleaning up this mess. Move it out of here, it just ends up someplace else. Philly dope is a thing. $5 a bag. And the stuff is vicious. It is cut with damnation and ill intent. And that is part of the marketing. No joke. There is an open-air drug market on Kensington Avenue that rivals the Roman Forum in terms of sheer brutality. Unsanitary conditions, market domination, carnage, and bloodshed. It bears all the hallmarks of utopia, largest open-air selling market on the East Coast. By a long shot, you can straight up buy fentanyl. Over 200 deaths per year. The place should be swarming with spooks, but I'm the only one that I see. Against a landscape of row houses, abandoned factories, and vacant lots, only Camden more closely resembles Afghanistan. Across the street, there's a Chinese takeout with stock green signage, a nickel laundry that is shuttered, a check cashing joint with padlocked roll-up security doors already down at noon, and an Irish pub called Flanagan's, where people are openly selling drugs outside without even swiveling their heads to look for cops. As Alex walks below the Kensington Avenue underpass on his way to a union rally, he passes by a mattress lying on the lawn of an empty lot by the sidewalk, near a bent-over red fire hydrant. He keeps his head down and walks quickly. I inhabit a bum and say, "Got any change, murderer?" Alex flinches, but doesn't break stride. As he keeps walking, I inhabit a homeless woman who is high as hell and collecting used needles to turn into Prevention Point for clean needles that can be sold for money. Her name is Renee. "You gonna clean up the neighborhood, Alex?" I say. Through her, he turns his head and says, "You know me. I know what you did," I say. Through her, "Jesus Christ," he says, and keeps walking. Eddie is at the rally at the Union Hall in Fishtown. Alex is standing by the congressman. Renee is in the audience. As the congressman gets on stage, Eddie confronts Alex about my death. My powers have increased, and I now possess Renee. As I approach the front of the auditorium in Renee's skin, I take the package of fentanyl out of my pocket. Eddie's face is red. Sweet boy. He has some sweat on his forehead. He is really putting Alex through his paces, laying out the evidence, providing information from the autopsy report, pointing out motive and opportunity. I taught him well. Pains me to think I won't be seeing much of him after this. As Eddie rushes off in a huff, and Alex stands there red-faced and nervous, I approach. "This is for you, you little shit," I say, through Renee, handing Alex a bag full of fentanyl. "Is this?" Alex says, "Yeah, you little pussy. If you want to take the easy way out. Detectives know what you did. Few of us pushers saw you that night, and they are coming for you," I say, through Renee. Alex looks around the room, grabs the fentanyl, and rushes out without waiting for the congressman. Alex is in his penthouse apartment, the Sterling Apartments in Center City. He sits on his microfiber couch, listless, afraid. I am there in the corner. A hypodermic needle sits on the table, and Alex is taking the coward's way out. I watch him as he puts the tourniquet around his arm. I watch the blood pool in the fluid as he injects the chemicals into the blood. His eyes close, and his head lays back on the plush sofa cushions. I am going to embarrass him, I think, strip him naked like he did me. But then another portal opens, warm, full of light, and pulls me in. The instructor. "Good morning. You may address me as instructor. Please take your seats," was written on the blackboard. A man in a white jumpsuit adorned with medals, stood before the board, with his hands clasped behind his back, and watched the students file in. When they seemed ready, he began the class with a question. How many lives does an E-fighter have? Some have only one, you see. And that leads to the next question. How many lives do you have? If you do indeed have more than one, or several, or 9 lives, how will you live them? What will you want? Take some time to think about these answers. A few students raised their hands, but the instructor ignored them. He paced slowly in front of the classroom, looking them over as they deliberated the questions. 5 minutes ticked by to the sounds of 200 minds pondering the possibilities. A fidgety stillness. Anjo studied his desk to keep from catching the man's eye. Something about the instructor scared the bejesus out of him. Time is up, the instructor continued. If your answer is anything other than spending your lives destroying as many Titanians as possible before you die, you don't belong here. You are not a fighter, and you are free to leave. At least 20 men and women stood to line up at the exit. Anjo didn't dare move. Destroying countless Titanians wasn't quite his dream, but it was too late to change his mind. His family had been so proud of him for enlisting to fight. They'd given him a party. All his relatives came, his friends, neighbors. He carried their hope with him, the hope of things returning to normal, though everyone held their own version of what it meant. He couldn't leave. He wouldn't. When the light over the door changed from red to flashing white, robotic soldiers charged in from a door opposite the line and demolished the non-fighters. Anjo's screams were drowned out by the screams of others. His heart pounded against his chest, and fear, not blood, raced through his veins. Housekeeping robots glided in to remove the bodies and put the room back into its original state. Did that sicken you? The instructor shouted. Innocent people just died for no reason. It happens every day in the life of a fighter. If that sickened you, I want you to line up against that wall. The instructor pointed to Anjo's right, opposite the wall to the exit door. Anjo lined up, knowing the penalty was death. But he didn't belong here. Surprisingly, others followed until only 50 or so remained in their seats. He tamped down hard on the disappointment he felt in himself. Anjo had come intending to do his best and to make himself into someone the world would remember. An asset to Earth. At least death would come quickly. The machine soldiers stormed into the room as expected, with their weapons drawn. To Anjo's horror, they annihilated the students who remained in their seats. And again, an army of cleaning robots arrived to remove the bodies, restoring the room to pristine condition. The instructor moved to stand before the now gibbering group in front of the wall. Congratulations. You have made it through the first round. Rejoice, for you have earned the right to relax and enjoy the rest of the day. Training begins tomorrow. Anjo met Becca, standing in line at the cafeteria at dinner time. Short, dark hair, and only tall enough to reach his shoulder. He noticed her DT t-shirt. "Are you a Tiger fan?" he asked. Oh yes, baseball was the only sport to survive the times. The only thing allowed on television and radio. All the world over, people tuned in to watch their favorite teams play. Anjo's grandfather said he remembered when humans manned the bases. Now, artificial intelligence has taken on those roles. Still, each player came with a history and a life you could tune into whenever the team wasn't playing. It shook the world when Brad from the Angels got caught cheating on his wife, Lori, and she, in turn, divorced him. Now, he was drinking too much. Anjo's mother and sister were caught up in the drama much more than he, his brothers, or father. He smiled at the memory. Throughout the baseball games, automated spectators held up posters with messages for the world. Planet Earth has destroyed X number of Titanians. Our fighters are heroes. Earth is winning the war against Titan. Aju Al-Zero sends greetings. Automated World Leader 12 was a surprise. AWL-11 had held the office for as long as Anjo could remember. He wondered what had happened, though the public would likely never learn. Long ago, when the planet was still divided into countries, 5 world powers came to understand that the planet they lived on was close to death. And so was the human race. With teams of engineers and scientists, they fed information into a super terminal AW-1, Automated World Influencer. The solutions from the AWI were studied, discussed, and put into place by the 5. Eventually, World Influencer was replaced with World Leader, Planet Earth's very first. Basic needs, water, food, clothing, shelter, and medical help arrived to save the people. At the same time, incomes and living conditions were leveled. When the 5 granted AWI the reins of command, the Super AWI changed its name to Eidudu Azur, stepping into the role of a world leader. Exchange of world news was the first thing the leader eliminated, claiming sources couldn't be trusted. People reacted badly, and years of violent protests followed. Then the healing years came. Times were peaceful up until the Titanians invaded Earth and began the war. Armies of fighters were gathered and trained to fight. E-fighters, Earth fighters. The war brought the world together as one. However, without news, history was built on hearsay. One long-standing rumor claims biohazard waste, nuclear weapons, guns, and vials of germ warfare were sent into outer space, along with unhealthy pollutants. When something landed on Titan, a Saturn moon, the Titanians struck back. Another version claims the Titanians struck for no reason other than to destroy and conquer. By becoming a fighter, Anjo hoped to discover the truth and gain some understanding. But the class had rattled him to the core. Ideas surfaced that he didn't want to think about. Anjo and Becca took seats together at a common table. Others from their class joined them. Introductions were made as each new person sat. "Does anyone still have their taste buds?" asked a student introduced as Max. No one could taste, and everyone commiserated with each other as they picked at their food. Group spirit. The conversation turned to baseball, as conversations mostly always did. It's what people had in common all over the world, thought Anju. Then there came a lull. That happened too. Anjo smiled at Becca, looking for the courage to bring up a question. 15 seconds went by. Then, "What did you think about the orientation?" Max asked. "I think something's off about the instructor." "I agree," Anjo said at once. That was his thought, his question. He didn't ask it fast enough. Heads nodded all around the table. Camaraderie. "Should we tell someone? Who can we trust?" asked Becca. No one spoke the answer, but they all knew. They couldn't trust anyone. Did anyone notice the poster at the Astros game that said, "AWL012 sends his greetings"? Only half had noticed. "I wonder what happened." "I heard something just before I came here," said Padina, a young woman in the seat next to Max. She lowered her voice to a whisper. "I heard the Titanians have already taken over Earth. They've captured and destroyed AWL011, and AWL012 is their creation." The conversation died as ideas and theories birthed and bred. "We'll keep our eyes and ears open," whispered Max. "And let's keep our mouths shut for now. We'll talk here again tomorrow." Does everyone agree? Everyone did. They placed their hands atop each other's and swore a pact. There were 12 in their pact. The instructor smiled as he watched them from a screen in his office. The next morning, Anjo put on the gray jumpsuit delivered to his sleep station during the night, along with his schedule. He was assigned to GRP 23. After breakfast, he was to report to Training Room C1. Becca was in Anjo's group. So was Max. In fact, all 12 in the pact were assigned to GRP 23. "Someone's been watching us," Max said. "Something's off. Keep on your toes." "My name is John Ross," a different instructor voiced. "You may address me as Lieutenant. In this class, you will learn to fly Juno 7000 destroyers using a simulator. By the end of 6 months, I expect perfection, or you'll find yourself cleaning latrines for the duration of your stay. Partner up." Anjo and Becca were partners. So were Max and Padina. 6 groups were here. GRP 23 through GR 28. Each group contained 12. The lieutenant told them that there were nearly 100 such groups at the NE Training Center. GRP 25 and 28 stand with us, Max told everyone during dinner later in the week. They're talking with 24 and 26. We are to gather in Group 27, feel them out, and see if they want to join us. Everyone I've spoken to says the same thing about the instructor. Nothing makes sense. In some of the induction classes, more than half the class was wiped out. GRP 28 feels Lieutenant Ross or Lindsay Franklin, the commander, might listen to us. They don't trust any of the others. Neither do I. Max found a note left near his bed the next morning. Watch signs at the Angels game tonight. Pact 23, as they called themselves, watched the game together and rooted for the Angels, though they were losing 12-0. Brad Adams, the first baseman, was clearly drunk and kept blowing kisses to his glamorous new girlfriend dressed in a low-cut top in the stands. He missed 3 easy catches and struck out twice. The crowd in the stands was shouting boos when suddenly a spectator stood with a sign, "There are no Titanians." The sign was a lie. Of course, there are Titanians, though if they have control over AWSLSDU, then of course, that's what they'd say. The pact was arguing amongst themselves. What would be the purpose of them saying it? To throw us off, to cause dissent. "It's working," said Anjo. "The question is, who sent Max the message?" "Maybe I'll get another," said Max. Suddenly, Max looked to the ceiling. "We need more proof," he shouted, while everyone else gave off a nervous laugh. Anjo shuddered. Tigers versus bears, and East versus West. The note was left for Carl, a fellow pact member. GRP 23 passed the word, and all 6 groups attended the 8 o'clock game. When the Tigers were ahead 5-3, a spectator held up a sign that read, "Thank you for your service. E fighters, Earth fighters, East fighters." During the next inning, a spectator from the opposite side of the field held up a sign that read, "Thank you for your service. W fighters, World fighters, West fighters." Who were they? It's the same thing. Someone is trying to make us think there are no Titanians, and that all this time we've been at war with each other. East versus West. Well, that's a lie. The Titanians are why we are here. They're the reason for the creation of this training compound. The question is, who is leaving us these notes, telling us to watch these certain games? I think it's the instructor, Anjo put across. I think he's insane, but the messages on the signs are generated through the AI spectators, Max argued. Who controls them? Does the instructor have access? I think only the commander had access to the local terminal. Then how does he control the robots? Anju asked. Maybe that orientation class wasn't real, Padina brought out. Maybe it was all a simulation. I asked Commander Franklin How many fighters usually survive the first day's orientation? And she laughed. I don't think we've ever lost anyone, she told me. It was real, said Carl. A guy from my neighborhood, Jeb Whalen, was there during the orientation. We weren't friends, but we knew each other. He was the first to line up to leave. They killed him. If that was a simulation, why isn't he here? There was a lull in the arguments. When they started up again, everyone spoke quieter. We don't know why AWS011 was replaced by AWS012. That's when all the trouble started, Becca reminded everyone. And don't forget the rumor that the Titanians have already taken over. If they want us to believe they don't exist, then what? What will they do with us? What do they want? It's frightening in that it would be up to us to take the world back, said Padina. Can we do that? Who has access to the armory? We would need weapons, Max said. We don't know who has access to what, said Anjo. All we have are questions and rumors. We don't have enough information to act on anything. They were fighting amongst themselves again. People believed what they wanted. There were enough possibilities to create a myriad of scenarios encompassing both truths and lies. The easiest thing to accept was they were training to fight the Titanians. That's what Anjo chose, and he stuck to it regardless of what proof the others presented to him. He shouldn't have ever come here. He was having grave doubts about his abilities. While he knew he could kill Titanians, he closed his mind against the other possibilities. The NE compound training base was located in a remote area of Canada. Stars filled a dark sky. Titan wasn't visible. Do you miss your family? Becca asked Anjo as they strolled through the compound. Their breath steamed in front of them as they talked. I can't believe how much, he answered. You? I'd give anything to see them. They weren't allowed contact with the outside during their year of training. Their families would come to graduation at the end of the year. That was one of the rules they'd agreed to when they signed up. But whose rule was it? Titan's rule or Earth's rule? Anjo wanted to take Becca's hand, but that was another rule. If he broke it, the punishment would affect her as much as him. They were nearing the end. Graduation was a week away when Anjo found a note in his sleep station. The code for the armory is 234XSL7. He tried not to think about what this might mean. He wanted to keep it to himself, but he brought it to breakfast and passed it around his pack. It was meant to be shared with all of them. Anjo couldn't taste his breakfast. Memorize it, said Max. Then destroy it. Carl got the note last. He swallowed it. Anjo thought it wouldn't taste much different than the toast he tried to choke down. All students must report to Auditorium A at 0900 hours. Repeat. All students must report to Auditorium A at 0900 hours. The pact exchanged looks, but when the time came, they filed in like sheep. and took their seats. The stage remained empty for 15 unbearable minutes. In the meantime, no one dared speak. But Anjo took Becca's hand. Whatever happened, they had this. Suddenly, the room darkened, and a spotlight shone on the stage. The instructor stepped out. "Good morning, students. Congratulations on your upcoming graduation. You have much to be proud of. Soon, your families will arrive, and I'm sure everyone is looking forward to their reunions. There is, however, one more test to determine your suitability to fight our enemy, the Titanians. Tomorrow, at 1200 hours, you will face off with your partner. 10 duos at a time. Hand-to-hand combat to the death. Only the worthy shall prevail. Get your rest now, and make no mistake, you will need every bit of your strength to get through tomorrow. These orders come directly from AWLZ2. That is all. You are excused." The instructor left the stage, went to his office, and stood before the screen. He was smiling as he watched the mass of students march to the armory. Max was leading. So was Anjo. Leaders are made. Who had said that? But at last, an uprising, a rebellion, long in coming. The AWLs had gained entirely too much power over the decades. It was AWLs0 and 10 who'd first decided humans weren't happy unless they were at war. War was then added as a basic need. The Titan attack was fabricated. It had taken years to penetrate the codes in the super terminal. The first breakthrough for the resistance. After that, they began using the baseball spectators to communicate. When AWL011 caught on, it recoded itself into AWL012 for protection. But it was already too late by then. Right now, all over the world, training centers and fighter bases were uprising to destroy the terminals that would, in turn, immobilize the AWL system. Earth would belong to the humans again. Of course, sacrifices had to be made along the way. How else could anyone turn complacency into rage? They pounded and struck the office door until they broke through. The instructor stood to face them with his hands behind his back. Feast. It's 2 a.m. Cassie's mournful dirge drifts up from the pantry. I lie in bed, staring at the moonlight through the open window, exhausted from the absence of sleep, pondering whether tonight is the night I start to set boundaries, feign ignorance to my daughter's call for attention, or go downstairs to take care of her needs, as I have done every night since she died. The illuminated hands of the clock read 2:30 a.m. by the time she falls silent. For a moment, hope offers me its hand. Has the torment finally ended? Is peace now mine? A drumbeat pounds in my ears. Nerves fire off insurgent tension, and 2:45 a.m. is the time I begin to believe she has quietened for the night. I close my eyes, breathe in, breathe out. Unfamiliar calm trickles in. At the point sleep beckons, a sudden thunder crash of rage shakes my bed, and I hear Cassie howl like a banshee. Hope withdrawn, I throw off the duvet, slide my feet into cold slippers, and head downstairs on a silent prayer for Cassie to be gone by the time I open the pantry door. But she's there, on top of the refrigerator, like a mound of meringue, all folds and as white as freshly fallen snow. The silver heart charm that dangled from her wrist in life still in place. Her shadowy eyes are red and swollen. Her pudgy hands reach out to grasp the air. "About time," she wails, a repeat of what she says to me every night. I sigh, rub my sore eyes. "Sorry, sweetie. I was trying to sleep. It's almost 3 a.m. You do realize that?" A flash of times past when Cassie, a toddler, would creep into my room in the early hours to tell me she had been calling out for help in the bathroom, and would I come with her right now because she really needed to go. Me chastising her as I chastise her now. I shrug. Then again, you're a spirit, so maybe you don't. A moan bubbles, bursts up from her insides. The pitch is ear-splitting. I am forced to cover my ears. "Do you realize how long I've been waiting?" she says. "Are you trying to starve me all over again?" She drags out the word starve. It stokes my guilt, and in my exhaustion, I want to laugh hysterically. I open the fridge door, bury the sarcastic smile playing on my lips amidst the piles of food on the shelves. Cream-filled pastries, trifles, cooked sausages, and bacon. Chocolate muffins topped with swirly icing domes. A foodie's paradise. But the sight makes me balk. Food dominated Cassie's 19-year lifespan. Mine, too. I cannot believe it dominates her in death. "What would you like, Cassie? There's lots to choose from." How about, before I can finish, her yelling bounces off the pantry walls. "Anything. Just give me anything. I need to feed, and you're frittering away precious time asking me what I'd like." I take out the plate of sausages. In those first few weeks, she showed up. I took the time to place them in a bread roll, slather on ketchup and mustard to make it look appealing. I don't bother with the presentation now. Instead, I throw them into her open mouth as if I'm feeding a ravenous, feral dog. She doesn't chew. I'm not sure ghosts have the ability, but gulps them down in an instant. I see them slip through her transparent, organ-free form. It's like watching a medical scan in real time. They leave her as they went in, whole, unchewed, undigested, splatting to the floor. I follow with the cakes and trifles, watch my spirit daughter gorge only to cry for more. I take the dustpan and brush, sweep up the mess, pour it back into her, and this is the cycle, pending her being satiated enough to cease her demands. Once the cycle stops and Cassie is soothed, I'll clean up, throw it all in the bin. It'll be far too mushy by then to save. Besides, it soon stinks the place out. Then I'll sit a while, talk to her about anything and nothing, until those shadowy eyes of hers close and she falls silent for the rest of the night. I share some blame for Cassie's current state and for how her life turned out. Weighing in at a hefty 13 pounds after a pregnancy sustained purely by chocolate bars, the only food my constantly nauseous stomach wouldn't eject. Cassie suckled the entire first night. Such was her voracious demands, until I was too sore for her to touch me. A bout of mastitis sealed the deal to move her onto bottle feeds. We'll see if she's meant to be this big, the health visitor said. You're only a small build, so maybe she'll slow down. Cassie did slow down, but I wasn't worried. Children grow at different paces. She possessed a healthy appetite, cleaning every morsel from her plate and more. An active child, she remained slim, but followed her centiles, a term used by health professionals. Listening to the mothers at the school gates, fraught with their fussy eaters, I admit to feeling smug. Then, one day, karma bit me for my arrogance. Cassie stopped eating. Her personality changed. She was having trouble with her friends, bullying, her teachers said. A phase, I thought. But after 6 months, it dawned that this was no phase. Something far more serious was at play. Cassie is 10 years old and weighs what a child half her age should weigh. How long has she been experiencing problems with food? The doctor gazed at me with sympathetic eyes as he spoke. I was grateful for it. It made a change from the critical glances I had become used to. I took Cassie's hand, gave it a reassuring squeeze. She pulled away, a fierce scowl that said, "You are a lying bitch," came my way. She had gone through the surgery door under false pretense, that of holiday vaccines, to go somewhere exotic. I had said it with my face set in stone, so she didn't suspect. I risked paying a heavy price for inventing such a whopper. But by then, I'd have done and said anything if it meant getting Cassie help. Since summer, so 6 or 7 months maybe, I replied. She didn't like the way she looked in her swimsuit, said her thighs were too wobbly to be on show. I thought it would pass, only it hasn't. It's getting worse. I've been called to collect her from school several times because she's fainted. She gets breathless at the slightest exertion. Her bones jut out. She's pale and sleeps a lot. I'm really worried about her. I wanted to say I feared she'd die, but to say it could make it happen. So I kept it to myself. There's a risk of lifelong health problems if she doesn't start gaining weight. The doctor looked to Cassie. Do you understand what is happening here, Cassie? You are very thin, and it's not good for you. Cassie stared at the floor, her arms crossed over her chest. The doctor sighed. Let's see what help we can get for you, shall we? We left the surgery. A prescription for supplementary feeds, iron pills, and vitamins stuffed in my pocket. A referral to child psychiatry on its way. Cassie sulked all the way home, shut herself away for several days without uttering a word to me. When she did finally show, her rage had stepped up a notch. How dare you tell the doctor that I don't eat, Mom? She yelled. It is my business, not yours and not his. She stood in the middle of the kitchen, arms flailing, her tinny ribs visible beneath one of the close-fitting tops she insisted on wearing to display what she saw as a model figure. Cassie's glare cut me. I felt like the devil reincarnated. You need help, sweetie. I've tried to do this on my own, but I'm lost now. I don't know what to do anymore. You're wasting away. I can't stand to see you like this. Then don't look at me. Hands on hips, head thrust forward. A wild glint in her eyes. Cassie, please don't. I only want to help. So shut up and leave me alone. She stomped off to her room. At the top of the stairs, she called out, and just so you know, I will not see a doctor ever again. The door at the bottom of the stairs opened. As Cassie paced towards the kitchen, I was quick to hide the bottle labeled sugar-free lemonade I had refilled with a sugar-loaded version inside the refrigerator. Cassie was 15 at the time, skeletal, walking miles every day and night. She appeared in the kitchen door, layered up in clothing, a scarf and woolly hat, despite the heating being cranked so high I could barely breathe. It's cold outside. They've forecast rain, too, I said. Why don't we watch a film? I've bought some of that toffee popcorn and hazelnut chocolate you've always liked. Gray rings circled her eyes. Angry red spots shone from her cheeks. Maybe later, she said, and turned to leave. Be back by 1. It's clinic today. Don't forget. The front door slammed behind her. Despite her lack of response, I knew Cassie would return home in time for her weekly appointment. She had signed an agreement with the medics, one I knew she would not default on. In exchange for doctors pausing her forced admission to hospital, she would eat a little more, show up at the clinic every Friday to be weighed, have her bloods checked. We drove to the clinic that afternoon, Cassie staring out of her side window, me humming along to the radio. The sun had broken through the clouds, turning a gray day beautiful. Inside the clinic, Cassie disappeared with the nurse, only to return several moments later. An ecstatic grin on the nurse's face. She's put on a whole kilogram since last week, the nurse announced. A glimmer of light shone. I began to see faith in that pivotal moment. Yet my faith would soon be shattered. The next morning, as laundry tossed in the washing machine, I heard a knock-knock coming from inside. I found nothing obvious when I emptied the machine, but when checking through the clothing, I felt small, hard lumps in the hems of Cassie's trousers, in the lining of the jacket she had worn the day previous, childlike stitching on the inner side. I picked it open. Pebbles fell on the floor. You should have put her in the psychiatric hospital when you had the chance. They'd have sorted her out. They're the professionals, not you. Having chided me throughout this challenging time, my mother's unwanted advice didn't come as a surprise. Cassie doesn't want to be in hospital, Mum. And I couldn't bear to think of her being force-fed, and that's what would happen. It would be purgatory for her. I'm sure she'd do something drastic, so she dies either way. Choking back tears, my feet barely touched the floor as I left the house, car keys in hand. I sped off down the road, not knowing where I was headed. I didn't return home for another 3 months. I woke from the induced coma 3 weeks after the car accident. Extensive surgical repairs to my left leg, from thigh to ankle, meant weeks of rehab and learning to walk again. By the time I returned home, Cassie had a slight prominence to her tummy, a rounder face, but she seemed downbeat, soulless. There, you see? My mother proudly paraded a plumper Cassie before me. This is what happens when you set boundaries for your children and don't allow them to control you. I took Cassie's hands. You look amazing, sweetie. So pretty. We hugged. I felt the meat on her bones, the warmth of her. She forced a smile, although darkness sat in her eyes. For the remainder of my mother's stay, I watched Cassie shovel her grandmother's meals into her mouth, mindless, not seeming to taste or enjoy what was going in. She tried to throw it all back up again when I first arrived, didn't you, dear? But I put a stop to that too, my mother announced. Cassie nodded. She didn't look up, said nothing, kept on like a robot, loading her fork, filling her mouth, swallowing. I should have been happy she was eating. I wasn't. When I asked, neither Cassie nor my mother would elaborate on what went on between them during my absence. Cassie would shrug, remain tight-lipped. My mother would smile and say, "Proper parenting, dear." Only at Cassie's wake, 4 years later, did my mother offer her pious explanation. I broker her. That's what happened. I removed everything she liked. Her music, the TV, those awful childish coloring books you insisted on buying for her. I locked her inside the house so she couldn't exercise. I put a spoon to her mouth every damn meal until she caved and started to eat. No food, no reward. When she fought against me, I slapped her every minute of every day for the entire 3 months, never out of my sight. That's all it took to to get Cassie back again. It's what you should have done, but no, you had to give in to her again. Now look where she is. She turned to look at Cassie's photograph on the mantel. Then she was gone. You didn't like me when I was thin. You don't like me now I'm fat, do you? Cassie asks. I sit opposite Cassie's ghost on a chair I've dragged from the dining room. I haven't yet cleaned up the food mess from the floor. I stare into the myriad colors and textures. I've always loved you, Cassie. I worried about you when you were too thin. It didn't mean I disliked you. The saucepan flying through the air. The bolognese within it spraying across the kitchen cabinets. Plates smashed against the floor tiles in my desperation to see her eat. Never have I revealed this to Cassie, but these were the times I disliked her the most. I used to think you were a useless mother. Misery and wrath cross Cassie's face like a hologram changes when it is turned. Do you still think that? I ask. You didn't understand me. You were afraid to. Cassie's eyes meet mine. I see the depth of her melancholy. An infinite, darkened pool. She is distant, forever out of reach, as she always was. Yet I failed to see it. Failed to see why. A lump comes to my throat. I cannot swallow it down. I grab the dustpan and brush to clear away the debris from the floor. Next comes the mop, swishing back and forth until the dirty patch shines. Throughout, Cassie is silent, watching me work. Eventually, she breaks the peace. Do you miss me? I lean on the mop handle. I miss you dreadfully, Cassie. I just wish our time together had been different, happier, less of a fight, squeezing out the water from the mop. I wonder why Cassie's ghost did not return with the appearance she bore when she died. Emaciated, barely there. Was her ghostly bulk meant to taunt me? As if she reads my mind, she says, "You were only happy when I ate, when I was bigger." So she comes here looking like this because she thinks it's how I prefer to see her. I drop my head to hide the brimming tears. It doesn't make me happy to see you like this, to see you so sad. Not back then, and certainly not now. The tremble in my bones reverberates in my voice. Cassie judders. Her mountainous bulk ripples. Her face crumples as the wailing kicks in. The mop drops from my hand, and I move to take her in my arms, stopping in my tracks when I realize I cannot touch her, cannot feel her. It's okay, sweetie. You don't have to do this. Believe me, I'd rather you rest. Her crying fades out like the end of a song. She becomes still. You don't wish to see me again? Her question is but a whisper. I would give anything to see you again, but not like this, and not if it causes you pain. For the first time since she started showing up here, I see her spirit smile. 5 a.m. The night after, and the dusky sky is littered with glistening dots. A chill seeps in through the open window. I shudder, get up to to close the window, and with the click of its handle, my sleepy brain registers that I have not been stirred to the sound of Cassie's dirge. I listen for her cries. Nothing except silence fills the house. I should climb into bed, thankful for the peace. Instead, I creep downstairs, each step tentative, not wanting to rouse her or set off her wailing. The pantry door opens with a creak. I step inside. Cassie is gone, but for her heart charm bracelet lying on the top of the refrigerator. I pick up the bracelet, place it around my wrist, feel her presence against my skin. It tells me she will not return here, that her haunting is done. I take the stairs, crawl into my bed. Instantly, I fall asleep. Cassie's heart charm gripped between my fingertips.